So the first step here, we're going to move that 1 over to the other side like we normally do. Minus 1 to both sides. Okay? So we're left with 3x squared minus 12x blank equals negative 1. Now before I fill in that blank, I need to factor out the 3. Okay? So I'm going to factor out the 3. So I'm left with 3 times x squared minus 12? No, 4, because you factor out the 3. 4x blank equals negative 1. Now we need to figure out what that blank is going to be. And we use our new b. We use this number right here. So you take negative 4, divide it by 2 like we normally do, and square it. So we get negative 2, square it, which gives me positive 4. So in here goes positive 4. But remember, we have to balance an equation. So if I have positive 4, you got to think about that for a second. So it's not 4. It's 12 that balances the equation, because when I factor that 3 back in, I get a positive 12. So if I want to balance this equation, I don't add 4, I add 12. Okay? So let me continue with the problem. What was the next step that we would normally do? We bring down the 3, right? So 3. Now we need those two factors, which is going to be x, and they have to be identical. So 2 and 2. Is it minus or plus? Minus for both of them. And what number goes over here? Negative 1 plus 12. 11. Okay? Now we're going to rewrite this again. 3, x minus 2, because it's a perfect square, we square it, equals 11. Okay, normally we would take the square root of both sides, but is that the next step we should do? We have to divide by 3 first. So we divide by 3 on both sides. And then what do I do? And then what do I do? Then I square root both sides. If I take the square root, what do I have to remember? Plus or minus in front of the square root, 11 over 3. And over here we have x minus 2. Good, because the square root and the square cancel out. Now, final step. Add 2 to both sides. So I get x equals plus or minus square root of 11 thirds. I can leave it like that because it doesn't go in evenly. Plus 2 wholes. And that 2 is not underneath the square root. It's off on its own. All right, here we go. Step 1, just like you said, we have to subtract 10 from both sides. We're left with negative 2x squared plus 8x blank equals negative 10. What's the next step? Factor out negative 2. Good. So I'm left with x squared. What's going to go here? Minus 4. Good. Because we divide that by negative 2, we get negative 4. Blank equals negative 10. Now if I want to find out this blank, we take negative 4, not just square it. What do we do first before we square it? Cut it in half and then square it. Okay? So we get negative 4 in half is 2. 2 squared is 4. Positive 4. So in here goes positive 4. Now remember, this is a point where people forget, and this is where the mistake happens. What do I have to remember to do over here? 4. Remember, we didn't do 4 over here. Okay, you have to distribute that number to find out what that number is on the other side. So negative 2 times 4 is negative 8 is what goes on the other side. Okay, so 2 potential errors. You could put 4 by accident, or you could put 8 by accident. What does it have to be? Not just 8, but negative 8. Okay? Now we're going to factor it. So we get -2. What are the two factors? What's the perfect square? X, X, 2, 2. What are the signs? Negative, because this has to be a -4 in here. Negative, negative equals what's over here now? -18. Okay? So I get -2, x minus 2 squared equals -18. Now what's the next step? Not yet, not square root yet. Divide by the -2. Okay? Orders of operations, right? We're undoing it, so you have to get rid of this first. Okay, so we get x minus 2 squared. What's on this side now? Positive or negative? Positive 9. Good. Now what's the next step? When I take the square root, what do I have to remember? Plus or minus. Good. So I get x minus 2, because these cancel out, plus or minus 3. Then last step, add 2 to both sides. So my two answers, positive 3 plus 2, which is 5, and -3 plus 2, which is, what is it? -1. So those are my two possible solutions to the quadratic equation. We did that by completing the square. I do, actually.